a little fast. I apologize. My goal was to get us back here at 7, but several of the other board members really wanted to watch the national championship game. Couldn't drive them away, but please don't share any scores for those of us who might be recording the game this evening. So with that, we will reconvene open session, and if you will please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So our report out from closed session was that we had item 7.1, which was the readmission of student 9-19, and that was passed on a 5-0 vote. And then we'll move along to item 7.2. Someone would have a motion.
Excuse me, I'm starting. Mr. President, I move that student 7.20 be expelled from all schools in the Mount Diablo Unified School District, and that student 7.20 may apply for readmission after June 3rd, 2020. Prior to readmission, student 7-20 must complete the following conditions: participate in 20 hours of social skills and decision making, complete 20 hours of community service, attend the Mount Diablo Unified School District Saturday workshop for drug and alcohol, and show evidence of a successful school experience with no suspendable infractions, earn 30 credits, maintain a 2.0 GPA or better, and have a 90% attendance rate.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Nail, second by Ms. Count, and we will now take the vote. And that motion passes 5-0. And also in closed session, on item 7.3, the board received information regarding the negotiations. The board did not get to the ambitious 11 items on the agenda, so I'll update the ones we did. On item 7.7, the board received information from council. On item 7.9, the board gave direction to council on a 5-0 vote. On item 7.10, the board received information from council regarding negotiations. And on item 7.11, the board gave authority on a 5-0 vote to authorize a settlement in the amount of $31,387 with Mr. Scott Rafferty, resulting from the district move to district-based elections. And all the other items within closed session were moved to a future meeting. And that is the update from there. And with that, we'll move along to student reports. And we have two distinguished students joining us on the dais, and I'll give them the opportunity to introduce themselves. And if they'd like, they can go first with their reports.
Hi, my name is Ulysses Rojas. My name is Carlos. Good evening, President Lawrence, board members, Superintendent Dr. Martinez, members of the Superintendent Councils, member of the audience. I'm the student representative from Ignacio Valley High School. And for upcoming for us, we have a winter dance. It's on January 25th. And we also have a multicultural spirit week next week. And there's going to be like different type of like cultural like things during lunch. And it's going to be fun. We have a lot of people like auditioning for it. We had like, I think 6 people come today. So it's going pretty good. And our jazz band is performing at CMEA Jazz Festival this Friday. And we are hosting the Leadership Development Day on January 30th. It's where 200 middle schoolers come and like they meet with our leadership classes, and we get into a group and we just do a bunch of activities with them, and it's like really, really fun. And our winter rally is on February 7th. But for our winter sports, our varsity boys soccer team is 4-4-0, and our boys varsity basketball is 9-7-0. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Carlos, you're just the silent, strong support. The wingman, doing a great job. Okay. Thank you for the update from Ignacio Valley High School. And who do we have next? Who can step forward and come to the dais? So we're taking a slight departure from our kind of comprehensive high school reports, and we have a special update from some of our students at Oak Grove Middle School.
Good evening, board members, superintendent, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jonathan Hennis. I am an 8th grader student at Oak Grove Middle School. I have came here tonight to invite all you to a community immigration fair that will take place at my school on Saturday, February 8th, 9:30 in the morning until 2:30 in the afternoon. This event is free and contributions are first come, first served. Big briefing.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Venegas, and I am also an 8th grader student at Oak Grove Middle School. As an international baccalaureate candidate school, some of my 8th grade classmates are participating at this fair on their 8th grade community projects. Our schools can stand together Contra Costa and partnerships with other agencies and organizations is offering creating confidential consultations with immigration lawyers, workshops, as well as information on resources and services for our community members.
Good evening. My name is Maria Romero, another 8th grade student at Oak Grove Middle School. As Jonathan and Sarah said, we have come tonight to invite you to our community immigration fair. Here are some flyers with detailed information about the event. Please feel free to share the flyers and invite anyone who could need assistance in immigration issues. Immigration is a great concern in our community, and this event can bring people peace of mind and residents and family members who speak for speaking and current and accurate information and guidance. Hope you can join us. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Karen Hernandez. I'm one of the organizers that's doing this event, and we're very excited. We've done an event past like this in Concord High, and it was a great result. We had a lot of people, especially in the immigrant and low-income community, that were very benefited by this, and we believe this is an event that can become a yearly thing that can help a lot of people, and we invite you to join us that day to talk to the students and talk to everyone that's going to come and really make a difference and let them know that you guys are also here to support them as a community. Thank you and have a good evening.
So I'd like to take a moment and say a special thank you to our students and to Ms. Hernandez for coming and sharing this event. And I think in this day and time, I think there is, frankly, there's never been more fear. There's a great deal of misinformation out there, and this is a wonderful opportunity, and I'll repeat that it's on Saturday, February 9th from 9:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Oak Grove Middle School, and February 8th, so I have Ms. Mason and Ms. Durkee to keep a close eye on me, February 8th. At Oak Grove Middle School, and I think it is wonderful and commendable effort from our students to help our community. So thank you very much for coming and sharing the information, and we will look forward to hearing about how the event goes, and certainly would love to see it become an annual event. So thank you. All right. And for our student reps, both of you are welcome to, if you have questions or comments, please by all means chime in. You're not able to vote, but outside of that, you have full privileges of a board member, so please, we would love to hear any questions or opinions that you'd like to share with us. But we're also cognizant that you have school tomorrow, so please feel free to step out at any time that's convenient for you. So thank you. With that, we will move along to public comment. The public may address the board regarding any items within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education of MDUSD that is not on this agenda. These presentations are limited to 3 minutes each, or a total of 30 minutes for all speakers, or the 3-minute limit may be shortened. If there are multiple speakers on any one subject, the public comment period may be moved to the end of the meeting. Speakers may not yield their time. And so with that, Ms. Mason, do we have any public comment this evening? We do not. Oh, we have one, which we'll certainly, please come on up. You can just hand it to Austin here, and please, and so you'll have 3 minutes. And is our timer?
Yep, it's working.
We're hoping our timer is working with the lights in front of you, and the microphone should be on.
Perfect. Okay.
And I'm sorry, would you mind introducing yourself just as we just got?
My name is Michelle Alice, and I am a junior at Northgate High School. Good evening, esteemed district board members. I'm here to offer a proposal to have a student board member on the Mount Diablo Unified School District. I know we have student representatives, but my proposal would be to have an actual sitting member on the board. I am actually one of the 3 finalists to be on the California State Board of Education as a student member. And the steps to get to this process were actually quite lengthy. I had to fill out an application, and then I had to go to a conference in Sacramento where I was interviewed by delegates as part of the California Association of Student Councils. And these delegates, many of them were often their district board member representatives on their own district boards. And it led me to wonder why the Mount Diablo Unified School District did not have this at their disposal. And according to California law AB 261, existing law requires the governing board of a school district maintaining 1 or more high schools to appoint to its membership 1 or more non-voting pupil members if pupils submit a petition to the governing board to make these appointments. As provided, the petition shall contain the signatures of either A, not less than 500 pupils regularly enrolled in high schools of the school district, or B, not less than 10% of the number of pupils regularly enrolled in high schools of the school district, whichever is less. Each fiscal year, and within 60 days of receipt of a petition for pupil representation, or as its next regularly scheduled meeting if no meeting is held within those 60 days, the governing board of the school district shall order the inclusion within the membership of the governing board, in addition to the number of members otherwise prescribed, at least 1 pupil member. Having a student on our district board would give representation to the students in our district and make you, the decision makers, more conscious of the opinions of the students. Through an application, interview, and appointment process similar to the one I experienced in my application to become student board member on the California State Board of Education, one can ensure that the student chosen represents the best of our students and our district. Having a student on these boards is conducive to the inclusion of youth voices. I'm planning on creating a petition and submitting it to you, the board, in the very near future. Thank you very much and have a great night.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
So this is something that I have noticed as well, that other school districts have, that we don't in that format. We've had the rotation going on with the student reports, but it is a little bit different of a structure. Have you looked at the different school districts and the processes that they use to choose that candidate? And if so, do you have a favorite? I asked that because I was recently talking to a board member from Acalanes School Board who talked about the process that they use among the 5 high schools and how involved students are actually in the selection process, which seemed a little bit different than Pittsburgh and some of the other ones.
And I apologize, I'm going to interrupt you for a moment, and I should have said before, as Ms. Durkee often did, that the board is governed by the Brown Act, which limits our ability to have a dialogue with you about this issue. And so apologies to you and to Ms. Count, because I don't think that would fall. I'll defer to council, but I don't think that particular question would fall within the guidelines of the Brown Act, which we're governed by, which would be simply a clarifying question. But I do think that we could absolutely, I think there is certainly interest from at least one board member, and I'll say from another one as well, in having a follow-up on this. And so we do have your card, and I'd be happy to follow up with the superintendent, and we could talk about having agendizing this so that we could have a presentation and we could have a dialogue around it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I'm well acquainted with the Brown Act, so I'm sorry I couldn't answer your question, but thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for coming.
And so with that, we will move along. With there being no further public comment, we will move along to item 10.1, the recognition and resolutions. And the first one is item 10.1, which is the review and potential approval of resolution recognizing February 3rd through 7th as Fund Education Now Week. Do we have a motion?
Mr. President, I move that we approve resolution number 1920-31, recognizing February 3rd through 7th, 2020 as Fund Education Now Week.
And
Second.
a second, and before I call for a vote, I would ask, is there any board member who either has questions or would like to share information about this particular resolution?
I just have a quick comment. It seems like every year we go through passing these resolutions because we support this, but it appears that ultimately it's not the public's opinion whether it makes it to a vote or anything. It seems to live and die with the labor. We were all sure that there was going to be a ballot measure for full funding this past year, but the decision was made by CSBA to drop it because they didn't have the support of labor, even though it was polling well. So just expressing my frustration that as well intended as these are, it seems to be out of our hands whether it ever makes it to legislation or not.
So I'd like to give a little background, as it's something I've been involved with. So this is an attempt by a coalition from Contra Costa County to partner with Alameda County. Alameda has actually put together a coalition that includes superintendents, school board members, union membership, parent leadership, and students across all the districts in Alameda County. And they've been building this coalition for a few years now and have had actions together. Things like, every superintendent in the county co-signing a letter to the governor, things like that, or big rallies. So their next action is called Fund Education Now Week. And in Alameda, every school district in the county is going to have some sort of an action every day of that week. And the idea is not to propose any particular solutions. It's not to, focus on one particular initiative or another, but rather to educate the public and the legislators about the need for education funding. So it's really focusing on that piece, that people don't necessarily have an awareness or knowledge of just how deeply underfunded our schools are. And so this coalition in Contra Costa County is just beginning. It's just beginning, at the very start, and the idea is to start with an action that we can all do together in alignment with Alameda County. So I'm very excited about it. I think that we have, and many other school boards have done exactly what you're saying, Trustee Mason, is, we will make a proclamation up here about, the need for education funding, but does that really help the community to understand? And so if we can really involve, parents, teachers, students, all of our partners in this effort so that we're all speaking with one voice, that's the goal. One of the pieces of information that I'm not sure if I've shared with you guys is that could be shared out through this format is the study, the Stanford study that was on adequate funding, and they looked at, just for what the state of California says that we should be doing in our schools right now, how if you had to just fund that at a very minimal level just to, adequately provide those services, they found that we would have needed $25 billion more than we have right now in our schools across the state of California. So, and you can actually go onto that study and click on a specific district, right? Where they take a look at your demographics of your district and they tell you what they think the adequate funding should be for that. So Mount Diablo Unified, our actual spending per student in 2016-17 was $12,100, and their predicted adequate cost per student would have been $17,000 per student. So that would be an additional $150 million per year that Mount Diablo should have just to be able to adequately educate students in the way that we've said that we want to do. So I'm really excited about it, and it's there'll be information coming out, in very easy bite-sized pieces on Twitter, and through hopefully our own district communications as well, and look forward to encouraging everyone to join in, not just elected officials.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, with that, we will call for the vote on item 10.1. And that passes 5-0-0-0. All All right, and we move along to our next resolution, which is, I'll read the summary. The Mount Diablo Unified School District opposes the use and sale of e-cigarettes and electronic vaping devices and seeks to establish policies and support regulatory and preventative measures. And so this is item 10.2, the review and potential approval of a resolution opposing the use and sale of e-cigarettes and electronic vaping devices. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve, as you just said. I'll second that.
Okay, a motion from Ms. Durkee and a second from Ms. Mason. And would you like to make a comment?
I'm really happy to see this. I think I spoke a little bit, a couple of us, or maybe I was, I don't know. Anyway, there was a presentation recently at College Park High School as part of the speaker series on vaping. It was extremely disturbing information, very well presented. And I just think, and I'm sorry I couldn't go so far to give you specific ideas, but I think we have staff that could easily address this. Some additional pieces I think should be, because it helps, again, just like the presentation, help educate the public, educate students and parents about the severity of this concern. And one of the things that I learned is how the actual vaping devices themselves are so terrible, that you're taking in all these metals. And so aside from what you're putting in to vape with the substances, whether it's tobacco or marijuana or whatever, the little thing itself is actually causing all these metals to get into your system, and that's where it's not 100%, but where some of the health issues are coming out as a result. So it's kind of like, as they talked about back in the day, cigarettes, when, I'll even go back as far as my parents' generation, it was the thing to do, everybody smoked. And how many years later we realized, how destructive and terrible those are. So I think that's what's happening with these things now. It's very cool, and it's what we learned is it's easy to hide them. The way the smoke comes out, it dissipates quicker, so they're blowing it in their sleeves, and teachers don't know what's happening in the classroom. But again, I think we don't want to downplay the negativity. And so on the whereas e-cigarette use is unsafe and has negative health, I would like to see, specifically to call out the metals, of the devices themselves. And again, I didn't take enough notes to be able to do that appropriately. I brought this issue up at this during the discussion because they have these great student peers, whose job it is through this TUPE project that's countywide to try to talk to their peers about the dangers. And it's very much, the T in TUPE is for tobacco, so it's very much focused on that. But the reality is, marijuana is definitely being used as well. And the whole risk of addiction, and I think is something that the general public still doesn't understand, and that in the way it is an actual brain disease. The medical model is there now to say it's a brain disease. And so it could be tobacco, it could be marijuana, it could be sugar, it could be gambling, it's all kinds. But what happens in how the brain, especially these young brains, get changed at an early age, that keeps them in this pathway. And it's not like it's going to happen to every single kid. It's kind of part of the problem because everybody thinks, well, it's not going to happen to me. It may not happen to them, but I think it's like 1 in 10 are susceptible just because the way they're wired to actually becoming addicted. So the whereas is teen nicotine use can impair parts of the brain of control, attention, and learning, as well as mood and info. I would like to see something added and has the potential to be addictive. To me, it was interesting when I brought it up at that discussion, and there was a little pushback because they're saying, well, we want to talk about things that kids are interested in and what they'll respond to will be a deterrent for them. But I think, so many need to hear the science behind addiction and the brain changes that happen. So I'm going to keep saying that. So some language in there on that one. And then I had a question. It says now the first, therefore, be it resolved. I think there's a wording. The supports. Be it resolved. The supports of the city council. So is that any city council or Concord, or what are we talking about here?
So we've made adjustments to this draft and clarified a couple of different items.
And that's what-
I believe we have it for the board. We've edited that out.
Okay, maybe I didn't see that one.
But I don't think it's been
Okay.
published. We got the information about
Okay.
correcting it ahead of time.
I can see it on, it is public right
Oh, is
now.
it? Okay.
So it says now that therefore be it resolved that the Mount Diablo Unified School District supports the city councils under their regulatory authority. So my understanding, I would read that as all city councils that are within the Mount Diablo School
Okay.
District.
Yeah.
And it looks like it was corrected on the other, be it resolved, to add in the
Okay,
words
great.
Mount Diablo Unified School
Okay,
District.
that's fine. So those are my comments on the changes to this.
So with this request from Mrs. Durkee, is this time sensitive, and do we want to bring it back at the next meeting? I'm also trying to recall, didn't the Board of Supervisors just address?
Yes, so that's what I wanted to talk about actually. The Board of Supervisors, I went to that meeting, did approve a very similar resolution. They actually, under their authority in unincorporated areas of the county, are preventing the sale of flavored tobacco products and vape, the actual vaping devices, right? So what you were talking about with the safety of the devices themselves. Unfortunately, that they don't include any of our cities. So within our school district, that's helpful for the Bay Point area, but it's not really making any changes for the city of Concord, the city of Pleasant Hill, etc. So there are other city councils that have passed these measures. The other thing that was said at the presentation at the county was that most students, where they purchase those vape devices, are at storefronts
Yeah.
near the school. Right? They're not going online. Very few of them are. The vast majority of them are getting them from storefronts that they're walking past on the way to school. So if we can get our cities very soon to take action and prevent the sale of the vape devices themselves, in addition to the flavored products, that would make a huge difference. And Lafayette already has, and some counties have, but none of the cities I would really like to see Concord, Pleasant Hill, Clayton.
I just want to share one more example of someone that I know that used a vape device for marijuana, which of course, this is not a high school student, it's a young adult, and it resulted in a complete psychotic break because of the intensity hitting the brain. And I say that marijuana today is different than marijuana when I was younger. It's much more powerful and potent. And so hopefully this young person is going to recover. But it was very questionable what the medical professionals were saying. And I'll just say it's not somebody in my family, thankfully, but the medical professions that they're seeing is a lot. And it's the combination of the marijuana and a vape device that shoots the brain like a shot and triggered this in this young person. And so it's very scary stuff.
And this is an example where if we had a student representative participating in our discussions, I think that they would tell us what we have heard from students, is that they are seeing this every day in our schools right now.
Oh, that's right.
They are helping each other out
Yeah,
with
yeah.
very difficult
Yeah, that's what the College Park students were
mental
saying. They were
situations.
giving data about how many, and they're like laughing that it's like 3 times that,
Yeah.
what the data is showing. And so, okay.
So returning to Mrs. Mayo's question, and I will partially direct this to Ms. Durkee, which is, at this point, I have a motion and a second. The resolution itself does contain the language regarding cities, councils, so multiple. And so my question to you, Ms. Durkee, would be, would you like us to vote on this resolution as it is listed? Or did you want to make amendments either now or in a future meeting? Or instead, would you like to vote on it as it has been presented and then have your comments be guidance towards staff?
Well, I just found I'd like to see it changed. And so, I mean, I'm okay with staff, we can approve it based on these pieces being added if the staff's comfortable with doing that. I mean, I don't know the wordsmith it for anybody, but I think the 2 things I brought up about, and where I brought them up, first talking about the addictive risk, addiction risk, and then also, the vaping devices containing metals that are harmful. Those 2 things I would ask that they be included. So however that could happen.
Could I suggest, could we pass it as is, or unless we could just add in that wording quite specifically, tonight, and then we could always pass a revised resolution in the future.
Why would we do that?
Only because I feel like our cities, I would really have liked for our cities to have taken action on this, last August. And if we do pass this, then we can take this as our joint voice to the cities to begin talking to them about the need for them to pass these measures.
I'm suggesting we add those pieces for the strong.
I would just out of the sake of expediency, I think you can, again, vote with the recommended adjustments. We can take those steps of getting it adjusted. We may not be able to sign everything tonight, but we can do that and then get it accomplished that way. I think we're okay.
With that, then, I will call for the I'll call for the vote on the resolution as presented with a with changes as proposed by Mr. King. And that passes on a 5-0-0-0 vote. All right. So, we will now move to the next item.
Do we do a public comment?
Just a real quick on that.
If you would like to come forward, and then if you would just, after your comment, if you would, so one, if you would identify yourself, and two, if you wouldn't mind filling out one of the cards for afterwards, that would be great. But please come forward.
With everything on the agenda, I'm sorry I didn't see this. There's a coalition, Monument Youth Drug Alcohol Coalition.
Pardon, would you mind introducing yourself?
I'm Michael Schneider. I have a child in Ignacio Valley Elementary, kindergarten. Monument Youth Drug Alcohol Coalition has been trying to get some movement on this and on cannabis and on alcohol for the last year. She had just texted me on how this could happen and everything, but if there's a way we can get them looped into it, because she was also looking at it not just for education within the schools themselves on these issues, but you had mentioned the marijuana issue, that since the cities are dealing with what to do with taxes, she's also had trying to create a way of taking some of that tax revenue, especially from cannabis, and getting it into the districts. So if we can try to loop in Monument Youth Drug Alcohol, and I'll get you that information afterwards.
As a clarifying question, she is the head, by she you mean the head of that organization?
Yes, and
okay.
it's partly through Contra Costa Education, and it's also through the Bay Area Regional, so it's an effort to go ahead and get more of a regional policy in place, both at the schools and at the cities.
Okay.
And so that's why it's important to kind of keep this with city councils.
Okay. And if you wouldn't mind filling out the card, and then staff would have your information in order to follow up with you. Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Okay. District organizations, so at regular board meetings, a single spokesperson of each recognized district organization may make a brief presentation following the consent agenda. We haven't done the consent agenda, so make a brief presentation. Items are limited to those which are informational. Do we have any district organizations which have submitted a card? We do not, and so with that, we'll move along to board member reports, and we'll start this evening with Ms. Count.
Thank you, President Lawrence. All right, let's see. It's just the beginning of January, so I would say the thing I'm most excited about having attended was the Adult Education Forum today that was led by Trustee Durkee. Thank you very much. Learned a lot about adult education and how we can help advocate for the funding for the incredible programs that Adult Ed does, not only alone but also in partnership with our K-12 education and our preschools. Appreciate that. Just a few items coming up that I'm excited about that I wanted to mention. I think we all got this, but I'm excited to see the first annual STEAM night at Valhalla Elementary tomorrow night, 6 to 7:30. And then Wednesday, January 15th, is the deadline for students to submit projects for the county science fair. Ms. Mayo may be speaking about that. The students can visit www.ba-leads.org. Exciting opportunity for students in grades 7 through 12 throughout Contra Costa County. Hoping to see some Mount Diablo students in there. All right, Saturday, February 18th is the launch for the EduTrack Foundation from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Clayton Library. The EduTrack Foundation is a new 501c3 nonprofit that promotes educational equity by providing college and career prep services by students to students from underprivileged and underrepresented communities. And also will be providing scholarships for graduating seniors. And I think most of you know Asim Yahya, recent graduate from Concord High, is now at Cal Berkeley and is one of the founders of that nonprofit. Super excited to see yet another student-led organization. Monday, January 20th, excited about the events going on in Pittsburgh. Once again, I'm not actually aware of any happening in our district or in Concord, but the NAACP does have their annual Martin Luther King prayer breakfast, 8 to 10 a.m. You can RSVP to info@eastcountynAACP.com. Wonderful event. And then students put on the Salute to Greatness celebration from 1 to 3 p.m. at Deer Valley High School Theater. A lot of great speakers and performances of those. And then on Friday, January 24th, is the East Family Justice Center in Antioch is hosting a panel discussion on human trafficking from noon to 2. And I think that's an important topic for us, as it is something that can be found in all schools. So aside from that, I just wanted to give a bit of gratitude to all of those who worked so hard to come to that tentative agreement between our district and our teachers union. I'm really excited about that because, as mentioned before, we need to be working together on increasing state funding to all of our school districts. And that agreement allows us to come together and work on the bigger picture that affects all of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And Ms. Mason.
On December 21st, the sheriffs had their annual dinner and toy giveaway at the Ambrose Community Center, and I want to thank some of the staff and administrators that came out. I want to thank all of the schools in Bay Point for having essays and pictures to line the walls as the families waited. We had 1,100 kids come through to visit Santa, and we served 700 meals. Also, the local sheriffs have partnered with the Brendan Theater to award kids in Bay Point schools that have perfect attendance. So for the first semester, they took 27 kids to a free movie on Saturday for having perfect attendance, and they wanted to have a baseline, so now they're hoping as they go forward they'll see more and more kids with perfect attendance because they want to go to the theaters with the sheriffs. I think the bigger draw there is hanging out with the sheriffs and going to the movies, but that's just my opinion.
Depends on the movie.
Yeah, true. Last week I went to the IB Gala that was Ignacio Valley High School, and it was really nice to have some of the alumni come back to encourage the students that are currently in the IB program. And they have one student that alumni that's at DVC, 2 that are at Solano State, one's at Monterey, and one's at Long Beach University. So it was very nice to hear the students talk about their experience, encourage the younger students that are still in the program to stick with it, that it's worth it, and that there'll be a payoff in the end. And Mr. Fulmore was there and got to hear about the kids' opinion on the debt. Don't worry about it, you'll be able to pay it off. But they were very very honest and direct about the difference between high school and college, and so it's good to hear. And then I went to the adult ed presentation this afternoon. That's it.
And Ms. Durkee.
Thank you. Well, first of all, Happy New Year. I can't believe it's really 2020. December 18th, I went to the Budget Advisory Committee, and we had a presentation again on the second interim, so very well done, very informative. There's really great discussions there as well. People are asking really good questions. So we talked about how this committee will have an important role going forward as we deal with our budget situation. January 7th it's the Special Ed Community Advisory Committee. Ms. Mayo did a fabulous job getting a board report. There was a presentation on the Healthy Kids Survey and really stressing the importance for all stakeholders to participate. It's online to really go on and participate in that process. We get some great data from that. And then a presentation on our district's mental health overview and resources, which is fabulous, and it's just amazing to me what we do and what we provide. And I guess the need is always greater than what we can do, but I think Mount Diablo should be very proud of what it offers. And they always share a lot of information about resources. I just going to highlight two upcoming events. The Special Ed Department and Parent Advisory Committee have parent workshops that they do on a regular basis. So let's see, the next one is February 4th from 5:30 to 6:30. It's navigating the IEP process, and it's at Shadelands Preschool. And then an autism, this isn't specific to Mount Diablo, but an Autism Star Conference, not till Saturday, March 28th at Contra Costa College in San Pablo. It's a family-focused conference for parents, guardians, and caregivers of children with autism. So these are two examples of things coming up. And then today, I want to thank my fellow board members for coming and supporting me today. We had a discussion with board members from other school districts in Contra Costa County about adult education to share information about this consortium process, what's going on locally and what's going on at the state. And it was great. It's great to be around other passionate folks who really care about their districts as well as the communities and the parents in the community. So I want to thank everybody for participating. And wasn't really sure what the outcomes would be, but we're going to have another meeting, and there's a lot of good energy, so we're going forward. Thank you.
And Mrs. Mayo.
Thank you. I'll skip the meetings that have already been discussed and mention on January 8th, the Mount Diablo Council of PTAs had an association meeting, and Purchasing Director McCallahan and General Counsel Alvarado presented on the district process for PTAs and Parent Club donations, and the use of presenters during the instructional day and the fingerprinting process. On January 9th, which was the same night as the IB presentation, I attended the 32nd District PTA Reflections Art Showcase at Pinole Valley High School. 3 of our Ignacio Valley High School students from the PTSA at that school, their art entries will be advancing to the California State competition, and I think we might see a winner or two coming out of that effort at the state PTA level. On January 24th, I just want to let folks know that might be listening. Applications are due to the 32nd District PTA for high school scholarships. The students must be attending one of our 2 PTSA high schools to qualify for the scholarships. And then I believe I noticed that there is a budget advisory meeting on January 29th at 5:30. I think that's new to the calendar, so I just wanted to mention that. On January 30th, the Contra Costa County School Boards is having a presentation, and Dennis Myers from CSBA Governmental Relations will be presenting on the state budget, and it's always an exciting evening, and he always has some nitty-gritty information that's interesting for those who attend. The meeting starts at 6:15, and we'll have a light dinner, and if you're interested in attending, please contact me for further information. That will be held at the County Office of Education. On January 31st, the 32nd District PTA is holding a gun violence prevention forum from 9:30 to noon. There's a keynote speaker and 2 panels with 3 presenters each scheduled for the morning. It includes a continental breakfast with a $10 registration. It will be held at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Pleasant Hill. That's near the corner of Contra Costa Boulevard and Taylor. And it looks to be an exciting event, and for those folks that are interested in this issue, the panel will be making their presentations and then also including information about actions that schools and parents can undertake. Then, as Ms. Cound mentioned, I'm in my Contra Costa County Science and Engineering Fair judge recruitment phase of my life. The fair is to be held on March 13th at Las Madonnas College. Students can enter from grades 7 through 12. Judges work from 7 in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon on reviewing the judge projects, and each student's project is reviewed anywhere by 5 to 7 judges, so it's a thorough vetting of the student entries. And even last year we had students that did very well at the state and international competitions, and we still have one student that is in the competition for the Broadcom, which would mean a trip to Washington, D.C. So it's a great event. Please contact me. The URL is too long to read aloud to you for the survey to sign up for the judge recruitment, but I'll be happy to email that to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mayo. I will keep mine brief, and I will just touch on 4 items that when the superintendent and I met last week to plan the agenda for this meeting, just 4 things that I'll share coming out of that. One is every board member has certain committee assignments that they work with in our community. Ms. Durkee was kind enough to share with me what we had assigned from last year, and I'm working with the superintendent and staff to get updated. Actually, one, thank you to all the board members who have now submitted their requests for assignments. The second part of the process is I'm working with the superintendent and staff to update the staff liaisons aspect of it, and then we'll look forward to bringing that forward at the January 27th meeting for action for board assignments. Until then, with carry on as you are, and that is much appreciated. So that is one. 2, one of the things that the superintendent and I also talked about was minutes for this meeting, which we have, some of you may have noticed, have not been very timely. And I'm going to defer to the superintendent to give a little update in his superintendent report, as we discussed, as to kind of what our path forward is there and how we'll be addressing that. 3, and this is touching on partly what Ms. Durkee mentioned around adult ed, and there are so many fantastic things happening in our district, and one of the things I've enjoyed most as a board member, and I hear from audience members, is when we bring certain groups to highlight some of these programs and share what's going on. And we've had adult ed in the past, but we haven't had them recently where we've actually in the past had the students come and things like that. So one of the things the superintendent and I talked about is what are some of the areas that we can bring as short presentations here at the board meetings to highlight some of those areas, to educate our community about what's going on. And so I would certainly welcome from the board or from anyone in the public as well, any suggestions they have for potential items they would like to see us highlight here at the board meetings. And then the 4th item is that provided that the superintendent and staff receive all the feedback that they're looking for regarding our intent is to bring the school calendar forward at the January 27th meeting. And I did want to take a moment to say we had several years ago adopted something I pushed for, and the rest of the board had supported, was the idea of a 2-year calendar. I really, my intent behind that, and I want to put this out there, was for it to be a rolling 2-year calendar. So basically we give a year and a half of notice, and so a year from now we would be talking about what the calendar is for a year and a half out, because I think a lot of families, especially with us now that we've rebalanced the year and come back to school early, more and more families are planning trips in advance, and having that information is very helpful to them. And so I'm hoping that on January 27th, we will adopt a 2-year calendar. And then my hope would be the following year we would tack another year on. But of course, Ms. Durkee and I will not be here for that. So I'm putting that out there. That at least that had been my intent, and we can certainly discuss that on the 27th. But I do think our families would benefit from having the rolling 2-year calendar instead of just every 2 years that we adopt a calendar. So that is my board report, and with that, I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
All right, well, basically having an opportunity to say welcome back, everybody. We're really thrilled on January 7th to have our almost 30,000 students return to us. Part of what I shared in my Friday letter is that I heard from so many principals, our teaching staff, our support staff, that it becomes a winter recess that gets a little too long of not having our kids be in our schools and that energy and excitement that is present for our students. So we're really excited to have our students back.
Many parents feel the same way.
I felt it, yes. On Friday, just wanted to share, Governor Newsom, of course, released his 2020-2021 fiscal year budget. And what happens, again, I mentioned this in the Friday letter, every January the governor says, here's the budget for next year. And then everybody starts reviewing. What does this mean? How's it going to work? We will have a team that will be working this week, going to a workshop by school services. It's called the Governor's Workshop, because there's so many intricacies within a budget that are kind of detailed out that we need to understand fully every nuance of how the funds will come, how they'll be accounted for within our systems, the impact that they'll make, that we will decide, again, as a governance team working with our communities, what do we do with those slight increases or changes that occur from the state level. So we do understand right now it could change. There's a cost of living adjustment of 2.29% predicted for next year. Again, but it's already fluctuated from almost a 3.3 originally down to a 1.7, and now it's at 2.29. So what happens through the process, of course, is that there'll be a lot of work done by our legislators. We will have a May revision. That's when the governor, after hearing from everybody, will come back in and tell us if he's going to change things again. From the May revision, that's when now the legislators work to develop our budgets as a state for the following year. At the same time, our governing board really works right now targeting this year's budget and everything that's happening, and we start crafting next year's budget, not knowing full well what it will become. It's always a difficult process for a board to do that. But again, we are focused on going through procedures of gaining information from our stakeholders, our public, our students, really having conversations with our board so that as we look towards this year's adjustments, prepare for next year's adjustments, and don't forget, because as a public entity, we must be able to demonstrate we can pay our bills for the next 2 years out in addition to this year. So it's some very detailed work that we'll be focusing on. I did want to mention just a couple of events. We do have this week, January 16th, Thursday, our Parent Advisory Committee at 3:30 at the Walnut Creek Center. Again, while we ask representatives from every one of our schools to come, other parents are invited. We welcome people to those conversations, and so please come. Our DLAC meeting, District English Language Advisory Committee, meets at 5 o'clock that same evening, so folks are invited to that. We will have our third Local Control Accountability Speaker Series event. This occurs on January 22nd, 6 o'clock start at El Dorado Middle School, and we'll be talking about social media and effects on students and school communities. And it cannot be said enough, the impact of social media, because it's right here every second almost. And we've heard from some of our own specialists about digital addictions, that people can't leave this alone. And think about now that formulating mind of a child who has access to the world all the time and the impacts of information through social media that can really get into someone's psyche. So we want to work with our parents, give information, be able to have some conversations about what a parent can actually do and what they need to be aware of. Many positives with social media. We talk about Twitter and sharing our messages. As Board Member Lawrence talked about, we want to share our message to adults who can get it and to some of our students, but we also need to be cautious that we're not part of the problem with social media. So just something that we wanted to mention and focus on. The last thing I'll mention to you is that our Mount Diablo Education Association is putting out information regarding the yearly awards, if you will, that Mount Diablo MEA does go through. And so there'll be information we're sharing about that process because we want all of our folks to be able to nominate individuals who are doing fantastic things that MEDIA will recognize at our May event. So that's something that we'll be putting out there. The deadline for those acceptance of nominations is February 28th. So there'll be some time, but just thought I'd mention that now as our process of working together.
All right, thank you very much. With that, we'll move along to the consent agenda. So items listed under consent agenda are considered routine and they will be approved by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. However, any item may be removed from the consent agenda upon the request of any member of the board and acted upon separately. So prior to taking a motion, do we have any items that members of the board would like to have removed?
Yes, I have 3. I would like to have 14.3, 14.10, and 14.11 pulled, please.
14.3, 14.10, and 14.11 from Ms. Mayo. Do other board members have requests?
I would request 14.14 and 14.15.
Any others?
I would like to request 14.2 and 14.7.
And then, if I could, staff will be pulling 14.9. We're going to move that item to a future meeting. And if we're looking at adjustments, we have our auditors here tonight, and so we would like to take an item out of order and have them give their information actually before we jump into the consent item, if we could, because they're here with a special request to be here.
Great. And so, in that case, we'll move to item 17.1. We will pull that forward, and then we will return to the consent agenda, and I'll ask for a motion removing the items that were requested. So we will move now to item 17.1.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come speak and to move up the item on the agenda a little bit. I appreciate that. My name is Charles Rigley. I'm a senior manager with Crow LLP. We're the district's external auditors. You would have received as part of your board agenda packet the financial audit report that was submitted to the State Controller's office by the December 15th deadline. So our presentation tonight is just to give you a little bit of a summary of the audit results and then give you an opportunity to answer any questions. So I'll cover a couple of required communication points, point out a few important pages in the audit report, which I know you guys jumped to the part where it says there's findings, and you already know if the punchline there is that, or the spoiler alert is that there are no findings this year, which is a really good result. So, but I will talk through a couple of items that I wanted to communicate to you all, and then I can address any questions you might have. But the reason for our audit is to provide an opinion, or our objective is to attempt to provide an opinion as to whether the financial statements of the district are fairly stated in all material respects, And so we're following generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. So those require that we obtain evidence to be able to give that opinion on those financial statements. As far as the timing of when the audit occurred, we have a spring portion where we come out and we look at the site location, site data, and some compliance-related information for the state compliance and federal compliance requirements. And then we have a fall portion where we come out and do the audit of the actual numbers, the end numbers as of June 30th. After that, we complete the reporting phase. So we're looking at the completion of the audit report that it gets submitted to the State Controller's Office. We also look to make sure that all new accounting standards are implemented. Us accountants are excited about that. Every year, the Government Accounting Standards Board comes out with a new requirement for us to implement. So we look through all the new accounting standards that are out and see which ones may be relevant for the district for their financial report. And so this year we had none that were that had a significant impact to the net position of the district, your fund balance. So no large changes from that regard, but there will be some new ones in the future which we'll be discussing with management and working to implement them. And as those come to be applicable, we'll talk about what those impacts are to you all as the board. We also look at significant estimates in the financial statements. So if there's things that have more subjectivity to it, we look and have additional procedures to validate that subjectivity in the financial information. Any other communications that we have really just are summarized around the results of the audit. So if we had any difficulties in conducting the audit, disagreements with management about how to account for something, we would let you know. However, we would have let you know before this meeting at this point, and so we had nothing to report with respect to those. And we also didn't have any what they call corrected or uncorrected misstatements. So basically, if we had an adjustment that we had to post to the numbers to be able to give our clean opinion, we'd be reporting out to that as well tonight, so we didn't have any of those. I will point you to one page if you're looking at the electronic PDF version of the audit report. It's on page 79 of the actual document, or 86 of the PDF. And I like to point this page out because it's just a nice summary of all the opinions that we gave over the financial statements and the compliance for the district this year. So our financial statement opinion, which is what we call unmodified or clean, so you want an unmodified opinion. Because the district expended federal dollars, we have a federal opinion that we give, so that was also unmodified. And then our state compliance opinion for compliance requirements for the state of California, so that's also unmodified. But this is a single page that summarizes all those three opinions. It also summarizes the specific federal programs that we audited this year. So there were 3 federal programs audited. Again, no findings to report. So all that was really the result of management providing us information. I know there was some changes in this fiscal year with respect to personnel. I think management did a really good job of providing us that information that we needed for the audit, pulling everything together. So we appreciate their help very much. I don't have any other items I wanted to specifically communicate to you, but I would be happy to address any questions on the audit report.
Well, one thing you make mention of, but I was hoping you could share a bit about. So in past years, we've heard regarding the separation of ASB funds and basically needing stricter standards there, procedures. Could you share the findings that were in the report regarding that?
So there are no findings to report with respect to ASB in this fiscal year, and that's a result of management. I think one of the items that was new this year was, or at least at the end of last fiscal year, was the addition of an internal auditor. And so I think those efforts made an impact on the results of the audit. However, there's always changes going on in the personnel at the site level that are responsible for those ASB functions, and then those are kind of a continuous improvement. So I can't guarantee that won't have a finding in the future, but we didn't have anything this year, and I think that was a result of the efforts of the internal audit team and management in general. So.
And I would just like to express my thanks, because this is the first time in many years where we have not had that, and it was precisely Yeah. One of the main reasons why we did create the or recreate the interim position, and so it is nice to hear that has had the intended impact in that area as well as several others.
So I was just curious, how many student body accounts did you test in your during your audit?
I can't recall the exact number of sites that we visited, but we do a rotating sample selection because we can't visit all sites every year, and the audit guide does not require us to do that either. So we do take a cross-section of the different levels that have ASB. So if you have middle school, elementary, high, each one that has an ASB component, we try to address each one and a sampling of each one.
Well, I think this is a great credit to not only the fiscal department and the internal auditor, but also to our school sites and the school treasurers at the sites that are helping to manage these funds, because they're assuring that the requirements are being met, and that contributes to this effort. So it's an effort from the district down to the school site, not just in the payroll department. And I also want to credit our fiscal department and all the departments that manage the state and the federal awards, because there's a lot of detail that's required in meeting all the requirements with those funds that we receive from those agencies. So thank you very much for working so diligently and assuring that we're meeting the requirements for that. I am truly amazed that there are no findings, and this is something to brag about and celebrate for a district our size in particular.
And before we see if we have any other questions, I'm going to ask our crack technical team if one of them might be able to assist Ms. Durkee, as she appears to be logged out, before we move on to voting on our next item. So are there any questions?
I was curious, did you provide a paper copy of the audit to the district, or should I request a paper copy from the superintendent? I have reviewed it electronically.
We do have, I know that we provided.
Okay, thank you.
It's wonderful news. Congratulations, like Ms. Mayo said, to all of the staff at all levels that contributed to this. It's really great news about our schools.
Any other questions? Great. And thank you for no news is good news, and we appreciate your efforts, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we will now return to the consent agenda.
We have to.
Oh, I'm sorry, my apologies, we have to accept the findings here. So do I have a motion to accept the independent audit report?
Make a motion that we accept the independent audit report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2018.
Second.
Okay. We have a first and a second, and I'll call for the vote. And that passes unanimously, 5-0. And so we will now move back to the consent agenda. And so do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception, with the removal for separate consideration of items 14.2, 14.3, 14.7, 14.10, 14.9, sorry, 14.11, 14.14, and 14.15.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Mason and a second by Ms. May. And I will call for the vote. And that passes 5-0. And those items that were removed now become our next agenda items. And so okay, so item 15.1, review and potential approval of license agreement with San Joaquin County Office of Ed. Would someone like to comment or ask questions?
Yes, so just a few questions about it. One was just looking at the date. It looks like this was started in July 2019. And so maybe it was part of a cleanup to ask for approval after the fact. But just curious if there was a system that was used prior to this and this is a new system, or was there no system before?
Well, I'm going to have Dr. Aguirre come if I get it wrong. I understand that SACE has been a system that has been working within the district. It has been an ongoing process of working with San Joaquin Office of Education. It's the same group that EdJoin works with us as well. So it's been a continuous process within the district. Somehow, through the process, we're just getting it caught up. Anything else, Wendy? Come to the mic.
So yeah, SACE is the system that we've used all along, and we bring it every year because it's a different expenditure amount every year. So we're bringing it for approval of the expense, not just for the use of the product.
I see that. Thank you very much. I appreciate you double checking and cleaning it up. Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve item 15.1, review and potential and approval of license agreement with San Joaquin County Office of Education.
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Count and second from Ms. Mason, or Ms. Mayo. It is a lot of M's.
Call us the M&Ms.
For the vote.
I'll be the dark chocolate.
Okay, and that passes 5-0, and we'll move along to item 15.2. Review and potential approval of Mount Diablo High School's American Sign Language class trip to Anaheim, to the happiest place on earth to help interpreters.
The additional information indicated that the site council had approved this hotel expenses will be paid by the site council. And so I was just asking for clarification. We've never seen site council pay for housing that I recall. So what site council funds were used?
I'm going to have Assistant Superintendent Michael Jimenez come up and share some information.
Thank you. So originally, excuse me. Originally, they were supposed to raise $5,000 for the trip, and the remaining $9,000 we paid for out of Title I funds that was approved by the site council. But what came into question was the appropriate use of Title I funds. I don't know if they were aware of how, if the site council was aware of how the Title I funds could be used. Since then, they have changed the funding to come from 0930. But then again, that has to be approved by the site council as well. So they're waiting on that vote as well.
So account 0930, I don't have them all memorized.
That is your LCFF.
Okay. And that's allowed for
Yes.
LCFF. So it's a site council decision. So once, even though the board approves it, the site council still has to approve it.
Correct.
They have to go back and proceeds. Okay. All right. Thank you. I would move that the Board of Education approve 15.2, the Mount Diablo High School American Sign Language class trip to Anaheim, California.
Second that?
Because she wants to be a chaperone.
Yeah.
I'll be more than willing to take you along.
All right. So we have, I'll call for the vote. And Mount Diablo High School is going to Disneyland because it passed 5-0. So we'll move along to 15.3. Review and potential approval of 1920 pending computer technology purchases spreadsheet.
Okay.
Questions?
Yeah, I think this is more of a big picture ongoing question is that would probably come with our technology plan overall is how do we ensure equity of our technology across school sites. to ensure that all students have access to the technology that they need. One example is I know that we heard as a board from Bel Air concerns about their Chromebooks that were stolen, I believe, and whether they would be replaced.
So we do not have every one of our Chromebooks completely insured for replacement value. So when in fact we have thieves or something like that occurs, there is not an exact replacement cost that goes to a particular budget or an insurance that pays for those. Our insurance limitations are quite a bit higher than that particular cost. What we have done is looked at, again, the ability of the school to go through the process of assessment, because our participation in the state assessments is done electronically. We believe that they do have the devices, they do have the ability to do that. So we will be working to ensure that our school can do that. It does take a little bit of adjustments when you have less devices and you have to work with the devices that you do have. The broader question gets back to, again, where are our district funds? Yes, we need to work to review our technology plan. We have, again, a new CBO who is already working on some aspects of our technology plan, making sure that we have a written plan for our devices, a written plan for our infrastructure, a written plan that people are able to communicate about, and our technology department can actually implement to success. So that's happening. This particular item is, again, the chronicling of all the different costs that we have. And we do have some sites who have the ability, through other donations and other funds, to add more technology. So what we need to do is both. Not limit the process of the sites who can and will advance their technologies in some arenas by way of those funds, but at the same time, through our plan, ensure that our students across the district have what they need in this form of a base program for technology. That's work that has to be done through the technology plan. So we're on our way, but there's going to be some definite work that needs to be done.
It's great to hear that the plan's in place. Thank you.
And so do I have a motion on item 15.3?
Move to approve item 15.3, pending computer technology purchases spreadsheet through January 6th.
Second.
Motion from Ms. Gillen, second from Ms. Brea, and we'll call for the vote. And that item passes 5-0. We'll move to item 15.4 regarding the review and potential approval of memorandum of understanding between West Ed and MDUSD.
So I asked this one to be pulled. I was concerned in the docket paragraph where it says it's from the fourth line from the bottom. The parties wish to protect student, parent, teacher, and/or partner staff data and to comply with all applicable laws regarding confidentiality. And my concern is that I believe we are required to abide by those efforts and laws, and that a stronger word than wish should be there. Hopefully we're not wishing this in the memorandum of understanding that it's more definitive, but student data is one of the things that we are required to protect. And so that's just a word that leapt out to me because it's something that I have advocated for many years, long before I was on the school board, is the protection of student and student data and personal information. So.
Again, I don't think there's any problem with us modifying and working with West Ed to basically change the term to will.
Okay.
We will do that.
All right. And I understand, where we will, but also I understand that it's not always possible. We're 99 and 9/10 probably we will be able to comply, but we need to attain that wherever possible. So I would move that we approve the memorandum of understanding with Wested and Mount Diablo School District with an emphasis on will comply to protect student data.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
I do have one more question on this actually though. Page 6, 8G, it lists, so we, Mount Diablo School District, are the partner, and it says partner shall designate a liaison to facilitate communications with Wested, but it doesn't name the person. Is that something that, if the project has already started, is that person?
No, it hasn't started. I'm sure they're going to identify that person once they identify what school, what kids they're going to be working with.
Okay, thank you.
I have a first and a second, so we'll call for the vote on item 15.4. And that item passes 5-0. Moving along to item 15.5, and Dr. Martinez, I'll apologize in advance because I forgot which one staff pulled, so please feel free to tell me anytime. It wasn't this one.
No, that was already 15, well, 14.9,
Right.
so we pulled, so you're beyond
Okay,
that.
okay, great.
That's
And so-
mine.
Thank you. Ms. Maya?
In case you were questioning. I don't have any questions about this one or on the one that's 2 items later. Why I'm asking that these be pulled is I wanted to compliment our M&O staff because these change orders result in nearly $100,000 in savings for our facilities projects, and that's something to brag about. So thank you, Mr. Jackson and your team. And with that, I'll move that we approve the final change order for the first roofing bid with Andy's Roofing Company as presented.
Second.
We have a first and a second. I'll call for the vote. And the item passes 5-0. And we will move to item 15.6. Review and potential approval of the independent service contract between MDUSD, Mount Diablo High School, and Center for Education Partnerships.
So I have a simple question. I don't read code, so I know what the funding source. I pulled these both just for the same reason, as if you could put down, not a bunch of numbers, but the actual description of the funding source. That's helpful. So just that one, and actually the next one, I was curious to know what the funding source is, if we spoke of those.
And again, I'll have Assistant Superintendent Jimenez come on up and answer those questions.
I believe they're looking at 3070, which is Title I. What they're doing is they are paying for half of the salary of this person to come to work with our students on college career counseling. I believe they're trying to recruit more kids to attend Berkeley University.
Okay, so then we're talking about the CEP Center one, that's Title I for Mounts.
Correct,
Mounts,
yes.
Title I.
Yes.
Okay.
So I have a question. The fellow began their work in August, the advisor began in August?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And then can all of the other high schools make a similar arrangement to do this, or is it just for, well, you said it was Title I funds, so that may be limited to Mount Diablo and YD High School more?
I would have to work with CEP on that directly. The way they came across this, Mount Diablo came across this, he was informed of it through Berkeley University, and he made a connection. They were able to come up with this partnership. It didn't come centrally from the district office. It's something that they had done on their own. But definitely we can look into that and see if we can do something district-wide.
$36 is a,
$36,000.
yeah, $36,000 is an amount. My next question would be, have we figured out how we will evaluate the results of this expenditure?
I don't have an answer for you there. No, I don't know that. I would have to speak with the principal.
So I would hope that we have some sort of evaluation process in the event they want to continue with the process next year that's, closely vetted. So we assure that it worked well for our students. So the goal, I did not understand it, was that the goal was to increase applications to Berkeley. Will they help students with all of their applications?
Yeah, I believe so. They're going to start working with them early on, about the classes they need to take, the coursework that's required. You're just trying to line them up, getting them ready to go into any college, really.
So not just
Thank you. I think that was the clarification we needed. It's not just solely for Berkeley, it's going to college, really thinking about using those higher levels of education.
It's just a recruiting thing.
Right, so I would definitely be interested in the results because it talks about the goal is to increase the college going rate of students at the school and provide comprehensive college awareness, mentorship, resources, preparation, advising, and information. So if this is successful, it would be great to then see how to replicate it. So knowing what is the college going rate of students at Mount Diablo High right now, or what it was starting in August, and then at the end of the year when this terminates on June 30th, was it successful and what strategies did they use? I think coming back with a report on that would be fantastic for us all to hear.
Definitely. I'll work on that.
One other piece, was box 2B supposed to be checked? It's that standard contract piece where whenever 2A is checked, 2B is supposed to be checked about the fingerprint. I'm sorry, I don't have the page.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know what I mean? On our standard contracts.
And it should be initialed by myself.
Exhibit B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'll take care of that as well.
Thank you.
I think that they are going to work with you. So.
I will move to approve the independent service contract between Mount Diablo Unified School District, Mount Diablo High School, and CEP Center for Educational Partnerships.
Second that?
We have a first and a second, and obviously if someone got into UC Berkeley, why would they want to apply anywhere else? And that passes 5-0. Go Bears, and we will move along to 15.7. And was the similar
Right, so it's a similar question.
I believe the funding is the CTIG grants on this one. Michael, can you confirm?
Chemistry?
Curriculum. Remember that one?
It's your budget.
Is it my budget?
I can't remember which one's coming out. Sorry, I was mistaken. I got some other piece of information.
Too many items coming out here. Yes, not exactly sure which one. I have to go back and look at it, but it is for some supplemental materials for science. Currently, we have. You remember that group that came up and presented on NGSS? So currently, we are launching our chemistry portion of that program, and we have a writing curriculum committee that is writing curriculum, and they're reluctant to commit to a textbook right now because NGSS, they haven't really found a book that's really NGSS friendly. So what they're doing is they're looking for certain resources they can use as we go through NGSS right now. They found something they like. They really like the resources that come along with this purchase. Not, the book it's handy, but the teacher's edition is really what they really like, and they like the additional online resources they get with it. They would like to wait for the adoption to actually look at books before they adopt any kind of book and spend that kind of money.
So the code is referring to what else again? What textbooks or what's
yes.
The standard textbook budget?
Which one is that one?
Well, I think that's the main.
If you look at the funding code, Mike, and it's 5190930. Just we want to confirm where the dollars are coming
That's
from.
it, yeah. 5190930, yeah. 519.
Would explain what that is.
So 519 is my budget.
It's coming out of the assistance.
Yeah, it's coming out of my budget.
Okay.
And 0930 again is LCFF.
And I think just the request is in the future, instead of giving us numbers, if we could actually see the funding source, that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay.
So translate for us.
I have a question now. it indicates that there are 17 chemistry classes. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, that's accurate.
Do we have 17 different teachers teaching the classes?
Yes, but they're all teaching the same curriculum.
Okay. Right,
Yes.
because I had assumed that there would be at most 2 chemistry teachers at each high school. So you're saying there's 17 teachers across
The district.
the district. So then, because I was questioning the multiplier of 17 for all of the flash drives, the teacher's edition, etc., because that could be a savings if there were not 17 teachers, if there were only 9 chemistry teachers.
Yeah, it depends on the size of the school. Some schools have 3 teachers, some have 2, some have 4, so it depends on the size of the school.
Okay, all right.
So what grade level, is this high school we're talking about?
Yes,
Middle school?
this will be their sophomore year. So their freshman year is living with chemistry, and their sophomore year is chemistry in the earth. And then next year they have the option of taking the physics in the earth or moving towards a more advanced course if they choose to do so.
So these will be used district-wide at all of our high schools for 10th grade?
Yep.
So I will move to approve the purchase of chemistry resources from Bedford, Freeman, and Worth High School Publishers for high school chemistry.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, and so we'll call for a vote on item 15.7. And that item passes 5-0. And so we will move along to item 17.2. To consider adoption of amendments to board bylaws. And I will look to the superintendent for more information on this.
Yes, thank you. These items are a specific result of the board's move towards the adoption of trustee areas. So again, 2 of our bylaws simply needed to be amended to reflect the fact that any person must be a resident of the identified trustee areas in order to run a school board election or to be appointed to fill a vacancy. So again, the clarifying language here is provided. It's simply, again, legal counsel has advised us that we need to move forward in having these adjustments made based under the trustee area transition.
Okay, I'll move to adopt the amended board bylaws 9220 and 9223 as presented.
I'll second that.
Do we have any questions or board discussion?
I just have one question. I know that last year Ms. Mayo was going through all of our 9,000s to look at, were you not? To look at...
Just the board bylaws.
Okay.
These are board policies.
This is
Well,
board
they-
bylaw.
Right, but just our,
I'm sorry.
oh, you're right, you're right.
So they are, actually Emily's has them and was going to look at, where there have been changes since we worked on them, since we
Right. So I was just curious for these 2, if there were any other, while we're approving these 2, if there were any other changes on these specific 2
No.
that you had. Okay, great. Thank you.
And Austin is completely confused. No.
We'll call for the vote.
So this one, it looks like it was submitted as an information item. But it needs to
My
be-
apologies. All right.
Could you do voice?
Yep. No, so it is here as information, so we'll have it come back in 2 weeks. And then we'll move along to 17.3, which is on for info and action, which is the presentation of the district's successor agreement proposal to CSEA. And this is on for both information and action. So Dr. Martinez, any commentary to this?
So in essence, again, with respect to governance code, as we continue our negotiations process, this is the successor sunshine articles, the simple term that sometimes says These are the things we want to talk about from an employee association, and these are the things that the district wants to talk about from the district's process. So what happens is that we bring, again, the documents before you. We're not going to read every item to you. And at this point, what we'd also ask you to do would be to open a public comment, or basically a public hearing, if you will, so that if there's members of the public who wish to speak on these, they'd have an opportunity to do so at this time.
So I can use the gavel.
Yes, you use the gavel.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open a public hearing on item 17.3. And do we have any comments, questions, discussion? Going once, going twice, and I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing on item 17.3. And which at this point, I believe we're looking for a vote on this item, so I will entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education accept the successor agreement proposals for CSEA in the Mount Diablo School District.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Mayo, second by Ms. Durkee. Calling for the vote. And that passes on a 5-0 vote. And we will now move along to item 17.4. Review and potential approval of the employment agreement between MDUSD and the Chief Business Officer. And Dr. Martinez.
Yes, so thank you. Again, we've had different histories within the district of having some of our top level management folks on contracts and others at times not. And so as we were looking to again bring in somebody of high caliber to this position, we did anticipate having an individual come into a contract situation. This particular contract is developed specific for, again, our Chief Business Officer. What we've done is confirm that the base salary is part of the Diablo Management Association salary schedule. So there's basically things that go along with that, though it is a separate contract. We do not have individual contracts otherwise in the district for certificated or classified employees. Our Diablo Management Association is a meet and confer group, and so we have guidelines that we work on with them. But the salary schedule really is affirmed through the governing board. And so this is kind of a unique situation that we're not going beyond that. So we're working within the salary schedule. And again, the activities here we believe are important, such as some of the coaching here, again, seeking expertise, and follow a standard process of ability for the board to employ this individual with a little bit of security through at least, again, June of 2021 is what our contract calls for.
So I have a couple of questions before we move forward. I'm happy to pose the questions after the motion is made, if you would prefer that.
I'm happy to take the questions first.
And I hope everyone will understand that this is not about the individual, it's about the contract. My primary questions, because I did receive some answers to some of my questions, was the professional stipend. In your contract, our contract with you specifically indicates that you will receive the DMA stipend in addition to your salary. Does this individual receive the stipend in addition to the salary listed in the contract, or is it included in the contract in the salary amount? That's my question.
It is not included in the salary amount, but because the salary is based on the salary schedule for DMA, the stipends, if you will, do stand alone as part of a salary enhancement.
So
those would be in addition to.
In addition to, thank you. And then the next question I have is around vacation days, because when I was looking in board policies, at one point in time, we had some staff members who had more, twice, it was like over 120 vacation days that they had accrued. And so the district developed policy because it was more expensive to pay those individuals for their retirement at the end of their career rather than when they earned them. And the board policy does mention 48 days, but this contract says 30 days. So can you explain the difference, or which takes precedent, this contract or the board policy around that, if I read the board policy correctly?
Yes, it's our understanding that the contract would take precedence. So we would only hold 240 hours, 30 days, 8 hours per day, as the carryover vacation without any prior approval.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question I had was life insurance, because I don't believe we have any contracted employees besides yourself who have a life insurance policy. And will the district be named as part of the, as one of the beneficiaries of this policy, and what is the amount of the policy?
Right, so part of our confirmation process was to determine that no other classified employees actually carry with them life insurance that the district provides, I believe at this time. So the way the contract is written, this person would not receive anything, though it's in there as a clause. If we were to add something as life insurance to that group of individuals, then they would be available to receive that. In some districts, there's standard 20,000, 25,000. You can do different things for employee groups. Our district does not have that at this point in time, so it would not be an extra cost as an item, because we don't give that to other employees. We could take out the clause if we chose to, rather than to leave it in, but that was something through our process. We were anticipating that our employees did get that, but they do not.
Right, and I don't necessarily object, I just felt that we needed to be consistent with everyone else.
If there were a limited amount of life insurance that was available, usually what happens is that it's not in the sense of the district being named as a beneficiary, because again, they're usually smaller amounts. 20,000 or 25,000 are oftentimes the standard process if we were to do something like that. If it's a larger amount, then yes, the point is well taken that you'd want to have something support us in the search for somebody new should something tragic happen.
So I certainly understand your explanation. My question would be, this is on the bottom of page 2, the very last sentence of that particular page. It says, she shall be covered by district-paid term life insurance, as are other classified management employees. I guess do we feel confident that because no other management employees have that she shall not receive it, or is it something that we should consider striking at this time so there's no ambiguity?
I think, yeah. Sure. To the extent that the contract does not, that there are no other employees that have this benefit in life insurance policy, I think it would make sense to have it, to strike it, to remove any potential ambiguity as to that issue. Also, if there is a conflict between the contract and board policies, which are incorporated into the contract, then board policies would be the prevailing method of interpretation for it. So this goes back to the prior question you had as to whether if there is a conflict between board policies and the contract itself, board policies would be the prevailing interpretation.
Okay, so I would hope that you would look at the board policies that are applicable for vacation carryover, because the way I read it, there is a difference in the numbers. It is a benefit to the employee in this particular situation, depending on how you look at it. But anyway, thank you.
So again, we're happy to amend and strike that that sentence regarding the life insurance.
Are there other questions? I have another question, but everyone.
Yeah, no, I mean, that part was confusing to me as well, the way it's written, but now that you explained it, I was kind of confused, because I never had life insurance as an employee. So I didn't know that much, so anyway, that's all.
Under termination, so section 8, D, number 2, so 8D2, unilateral termination by the governing board. Just, I want to make sure I understand it correctly as I read it. The governing board may terminate the agreement without cause upon 90 days written notice, provided that the district shall pay the chief business officer as severance the chief business officer the base salary she would have earned under this agreement to the date of termination, not to exceed 12 months base salary. I guess I'm looking for a clarification as to what is meant by the date of termination. Is that the termination of the contract with the 90 days notice, or is that saying up to June 30th, 2021? So I'm just unclear as to what date of termination means.
So under the contract, the date of termination would be the date by which there will be a unilateral termination by the board, not the date of the contract itself would expire, but that date in which the board has made a determination that this person should be terminated.
Okay. So just totally hypothetically, but so I understand, if the board made a decision on April 1st of 2020, they would be required to pay for 90 days notice, which would be through July 1st of 2020. It does not go beyond that. Am I understanding that correctly, or I just want clarification? I want to make sure I'm understanding this.
No, there would still be an expectation that the person receives a year's salary. That's why you're under a contract. There's
Okay, that's what, but it seemed like there was a conflict in the two answers, and so that's what I'm trying to understand.
Okay, all right. So the date of termination then, as we're clarifying, then would be the date in which the contract ends, so it would be an expectation of your salary up from that time. In which case we will need to actually go ahead and address that issue, because it does create ambiguity on the language as it is. The date of termination may be the date of unilateral termination by the board as well, so we need to clarify that as well.
So regardless.
What you're saying is regardless of performance, as soon as we sign this contract, the person is entitled to 12 months salary.
Yes.
Well, barring a material breach or a good cause, which is the first part, but I'm please.
Oh, so this is for without cause?
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
Thank you.
This is just, we're done here. So we identify the date. Again, my understanding, this is our, and we just need to clarify, would be, again, if the board decided without clause, we're making a decision, 90 days written notice. We have to give 90 days written notice that the district shall pay for up to a year's time. So you would give notice that that person is entitled up to a year's time. If this were to occur with 5 months remaining on the contract and we've not extended the contract, now you're only obligated to 5 months. It does not go beyond the June 30th, 2021. So really we're in contract for 1.5 years at this point. At some point, we may come back and say, let's extend, but really our risk is fairly limited in this particular situation.
Yeah, and attorneys make their living in the gray zone, so I would, so you know, if there is any ambiguity, absolutely, we need to go back and look at the intent of the parties and clarify that.
Something more along the line. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I thought I was interrupting you, but are you suggesting something along the lines of that it would read instead under this agreement to the date of the chief business officer, the base salary she would have earned under this agreement to the date of contract to the end date of the contract, something along those
Something along
lines.
those lines, right.
Contract expiration?
Contract expiration.
That would make it much more clear than simple termination, yes.
Okay.
So do we need to bring this back at the next meeting, or do we go ahead and, the striking of the one sentence is easy. The question is the board comfortable with providing context to the superintendent regarding the change?
So I think the other change would just be to change the word termination on that line to contract expiration.
Right. We're happy to do that.
Our legal counsel's okay.
We can make the changes, yeah, absolutely, yes.
In which case, so the options would be, so if someone makes a motion with the changes they would like, we can act upon that. If no one makes a motion, it would die for lack of a motion, but so.
We had a motion on the table already.
We did, we took the comments.
I asked that
right.
question.
Okay.
Yes, we asked, and so we took.
All right. So I would like to make a motion to approve the employment agreement between Mount Diablo Unified School District and the Chief Business Officer with 2 changes. Page 4, section 2A, changing the word termination to contract expiration.
It's the bottom of page 2. It's 3D, the final section.
And striking the final sentence of section 3D at the bottom of page 2, which says, in addition, she shall be covered by a district-paid term life insurance policy.
And if I could clarify, Ms. Count, I believe the first one that you meant was under item 8D2, correct?
Correct.
Second.
With those amendments, I will call for the vote. And that motion passes 5-0. And with that, we'll go ahead. There were no items that were not completed during the first closed session that we are looking to carry over. As mentioned, some of those items that were not covered will be coming back at our next meeting. And with that,
Do we have any documents to sign tonight?
I was going to ask because
We've got some adjustments.
we don't.
Yes.
We can do it.
Austin says.
Were there adjustments to the fund education now?
No. Yes, we have it.
So it is it agreed that board members will visit the district office to to sign these documents if the signatures are critical for our next meeting?
So we have both resolutions. We still need to edit the contract.
I will explain my hesitation, which is the fact that as someone who works for an electronic signature company, which is governed by federal law, I have used electronic signature to sign documents, which is completely binding and legally valid, but without visiting the district office to do so.
We had a correct and cure on the Brown Act because we didn't sign the document publicly at a meeting. So I am, that is why, and I understand that it's considered ministerial by legal counsel, but we still went through a very difficult correct and cure situation. So if we are all in agreement that that's how we will proceed, then I am fine with that, but we are making that statement publicly that we will be doing that. So,
Could another alternative be that, it's extremely early at 9 p.m. If we were to stay, if we were all able to stay for a period of time? for the edits to be made, which we all be comfortable with. Would that be preferable to return it?
I'm willing to stay.
5 minutes.
Am I safe to adjourn, but we're still, or do you want me to?
Are we agreeing to stay, or are we coming back?
I'm happy to stay.
I'm willing
I'm happy
to
to
stay.
stay.
About 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, but do I?
Go ahead and adjourn, yes.
Adjourn, so, okay, the meeting is adjourned.